So this video is if you still need a little bit of help on Monday's slide where we are simplifying radicals. I'm actually going to go ahead and work through the first three problems for you, the square root of 98, the square root of 54, and the square root of 144. Two things, I will be using my hover cam. We know that it kind of zooms in and out, so I will do my best to make sure that that is focused at all times. And the other thing is that my dogs just decided to start eating their food, so if you hear some chomping in the background, that is Lambo and Shady, who decided that now would be the best time for that, to eat some food. So, first thing that we have to do is create this list of perfect squares. Now, when you actually do this slide on your own, I created it for you. The list is right there, but let me go ahead and talk about how I come up with that list first. Now, the list of perfect squares is exactly what it sounds like. You take each number and square it so that you have its perfect square. The way that you do that is you just start with 1, and what you're going to do is you're going to do 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, dot, 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 dot. For this video, we'll go all the way up to 10 squared. So we'll do 1 squared, 2 squared, 3 squared, 4 squared, all the way up to 10 squared. Now you could keep going, but for the purposes of this video and for the purposes of what I want you to know this year, I only need you to know up to 10 squared. Now you can go ahead and type these on your calculator or do it in your head. So 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, 6 squared is 36, there we go, 7 squared is 49, 8 squared is 64, 9 squared is 81, 10 squared is 100. So there's our list of perfect squares right now. So when we're trying to figure out if we need to simplify a radical, the first thing that we need to do is take our calculator and figure out if I can just take the square root of the number. So I have our normal calculator that we usually use in school. You can also do this on the calculator that's just linked in the slide. It brings you to an online calculator. So let's start with square root of 98. First thing I'm going to do, I'm doing this one right here. Oops, sorry. So the first thing I'm going to do is type that into my calculator to see if it gives me a number, or at least a pretty number. So if you hit second, x squared right here, you can see that it gives a little square root. You're going to type in 98 and hit enter. As you can see, it gives me a really, really long decimal, 9.899494939, blah, blah, blah. Just long. It's not a pretty number. If this were to give me a pretty number, you would be done. That's your answer, all set. You need to just write that down and you're done. But when it gives you a long decimal like this, that's when you know you want to simplify it. So simplifying it basically means you're going to break it down into 2 different square roots, okay? When 2 square roots are written next to each other like this actually means that they're being multiplied. So for example, let's think about a smaller number for a second. I know that 12 can be broken down into 2 times 6 or 3 times 4. So a lot of the numbers can be broken down to 2 numbers that can multiply to each other. Okay, so one more time, if I were to talk about 6, it can be broken down into 1 times 12 or 2 times 6 or 3 times 4. The problem is that we can't just come up with random numbers here. We would all have different answers. It doesn't make sense. That's not how you do it. What you need to do is you need to find the largest number from this list that goes into this number. Okay, so this first number right here that multiplies to give you 98 has to be from this list, and it has to be the largest number from this list. So we're actually going to start from the larger side of this list, down at 100. Now the way that you do this is you're going to take your calculator again, and you're going to start taking the number 98 and start dividing it by these numbers in this line. Now I'm not going to do 98 divided by 100, because if the number's bigger than that, we know it's not going to work. You can't do 98 divided by 100. It's automatically going to get you a decimal. I know in my head 98 divided by 81 isn't going to work, but I'd rather you just be safe than sorry. Start at 81 because it's the next number smaller than this, and start dividing. So 81 divided, 98 divided by 81. Nope, decimal. Let's do the next one. 98 divided by 64. Nope, decimal. Let's go to the next one. 98 divided by 49. Now that gets me a good number. So we know that 49 is the biggest number that can divide evenly into 98. So that 49 is going to go right here. It is very important that the number from that list goes in the first square root. Now what goes into the second square root? 98 divided by 49 gives me 2. So that's what I'm going to put there is a 2. So again, square root of 98 is going to be broken down in the square root of 49 and the square root of 2 because 49 times 2 gets you 98. Okay. Now the reason why we wanted to put the list or the number from the list in this square root right here is because you can actually break that down further. Since this is a list of perfect squares, as long as I put that number from the list first, you're going to be able to take the square root of it. So if I take the square root, if I take the square root of 49, that actually equals 7. So I'm going to cross off 49. I'm going to rewrite this as 7 instead of square root of 49, square root of 2, and that's going to be your final answer. Now just to show you guys, square root of 98 got us that long decimal, and if I were to type in 7 square root of 2, it gets me the exact same decimal. So these two things are actually equal to each other. I know you're probably questioning, why the heck do I have to do this? Why is this important? Why couldn't I just leave it square root of 98 instead of simplifying it down? This actually, we would have done more with this year if we had the opportunity, if we had more time, but this, being able to simplify radicals, is going to be super important for algebra next year. So let's go ahead and look at the next one, square root of 54. First thing I want to do is make sure that it doesn't just get me a pretty number. So I'm going to go ahead and take the square root of 54. It does not. It gets me a giant decimal, so I know that means I want to break it down into 2 square roots. Okay, it's the same process each time. So now I'm going to start dividing. I don't want to do 54 divided by 100. That doesn't make sense. Don't want to do 54 divided by 81. I don't want to do 54 divided by 64. 49 is the next number that could potentially work because it's smaller. So let's start. 54 divided by 49. Nope. Long decimal, it's not that one. 54 divided by 36. Nope, it's not a long decimal, but as you can see, it's still a decimal, 1.5. I don't want a decimal, so it's not that one. Let's try 25. 54 divided by 25. Nope, not a long decimal, but still a decimal, so it's not 25. Let's bump down to 16. 54 divided by 16. Nope. Still a decimal, so it's not 16. Bump down one more. 54 divided by 9. There we go. Okay, so it took us a little while to get there, but it's worth it doing it that way. So 54 divided by 9 equals 6. The 9 is from the list, so I'm going to put the 9 first. And then since 54 divided by 9 is 6, the 6 is going to go here. Because we followed the steps and we put the number from the list first, that means we're going to be able to simplify this. So if I type in square root of 9 into my calculator, square root of 9 is equal to 3. So I can rewrite it as 3 square root of 6. And again, square root of 54 and 3 square root of 6, if I were to type it into the calculator, means the exact same thing. Okay. Last one, square root of 144. First thing I want to do is make sure it doesn't get me a pretty number, and I'm already all set. So square root of 144. Now when I type that in, I get a pretty number of 12. For the last two, I got these decimals. They were ugly. If you get decimals, that's how you know you need to simplify. When you type in the square root of 144, you get 12. And if you get a nice number like that, you just have to write that down, and that's your answer. Okay? So those are the first 3 on the sheet. I want you to go ahead and try the last 3 on your own. Check the answer key. The answer key is there to make sure you got it right. If you got it right, you are golden. I'm so proud of you. And if you got it wrong, that's okay. Just shoot me an email and I would love to help you.